Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump is threatening to cut all federal funding to Harvard after a federal task force said the university, quote, was a willful participant in anti-Semitic harassment of Jewish students, faculty, and staff. A long night of debate on the Senate floor. Democrats railing against the GOP's budget bill. Some Republican holdouts remain. One of them says he won't seek re-election after pushback from President Trump. The State Department revokes visas for a British band. The duo faces accusations of anti-Semitism after making statements at a recent show. The Justice Department announces charges against nearly 100 healthcare providers. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the department won't tolerate fraud. A former high-ranking New York State government employee and her husband pleaded not guilty today at a Brooklyn federal criminal court arraignment.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. President Trump is threatening to cut all federal funding to Harvard. The administration says the Ivy League university failed to protect Jewish students from harassment. Today, a federal task force informed Harvard that its investigation found that the university violated civil rights laws. Investigators say they found Harvard was at times a, quote, willful participant in anti-Semitic harassment of Jewish students, faculty, and staff. Much of the investigation's evidence focused on campus protests over the Israel-Hamas war. The move is the latest in the White House's disputes with Harvard. The university has already lost more than $2.6 billion in federal research grants related to the university's campus governance, hiring, and admissions. And a look now at a deportation case. An appeals court will hear arguments today over the proper procedures the Trump administration must follow to deport alleged members of the Venezuelan street gang Tren de Aragua. The deportations are authorized under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. In May, the Supreme Court blocked the administration from deporting illegal immigrants under this law within 24 hours of notification. But the High Court referred the case to the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to clarify the procedures. Meanwhile, the White House says its border enforcement policies have improved national security. In May, Border Patrol reported not releasing any illegal immigrants into the U.S. That's compared with 62,000 migrants released into the country under the Biden administration during May 2024. And now a look at the recent controversy over birthright citizenship. Two federal judges in Maryland and New Hampshire will soon hold virtual hearings. Immigration advocates are pushing class action lawsuits to block President Trump's executive order. The policy will limit automatic citizenship for children born to illegal immigrants and temporary visitors. The move follows a Supreme Court ruling that restricted nationwide injunctions. The 6-3 ruling doesn't decide the fate of Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship, but it does tell lower courts to narrow broad rulings that blocked it. The court said such injunctions can still be allowed in class action lawsuits. Trump called the ruling a major victory. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Glastonbury organizers said on Sunday they were appalled by the onstage chanting against the Israeli military during a performance at the festival by punk rock group Bob Violent. Here's more.
British police say they're considering an investigation into onstage chants of death to the Israeli military by the punk rap duo Bob Vylan at the Glastonbury Music Festival on Saturday. Police did not name the group or Irish band Kneecap, who appeared on the same stage and also criticised Israel. However, authorities in Somerset, where the festival is held, say they're reviewing video footage to decide whether any criminal offences were committed. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Glastonbury organisers said they were appalled by the chants. Starmer also slammed the BBC. After Bob Vylan's performance was broadcast live, the frontman of Kneecap is facing terrorism charges for allegedly displaying a flag in support of militant group Hezbollah at a London concert last November. He has denied the charge. The BBC did not broadcast Kneecap's set, but Bob Vylan's took place just before. They led chants against Starmer, then Free Free Palestine and Death to the IDF. referring to the Israeli Defense Forces, the military's formal name. Starmer said the network needs to explain how it allowed the comments to air. A BBC spokesperson responded, saying a warning had been shown on screen about what it describes as very strong and discriminatory language. The BBC also confirmed that Bob Vylan's performance will not be available on demand. The festival organisers condemned the chants, saying it very much crossed a line, and that Glastonbury has no room for, quote, anti-Semitism, hate speech or incitement to violence. The Israeli embassy in the UK condemned the inflammatory and hateful rhetoric expressed on stage. Bob Vylan has not responded to a request for comment.
In the U.S., the State Department revoked visas for former members of the Bob Vylan band. The Deputy Secretary of State took to X to make the announcement. The Deputy Secretary called the band's statements a, quote, hateful tirade. The Post read, quote, foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome visitors to our country. Bob Vylan was scheduled to begin a U.S. tour this October, kicking off in Spokane, Washington. The Justice Department held a press conference today to highlight an investigation which resulted in criminal charges against more than 300 individuals. Those charges included 96 doctors, nurse practitioners, pharmacists, and other licensed medical professionals. The acting inspector general at Health and Human Services outlined her department's priorities. Listen.
And under our watch, criminals will not be allowed to enrich themselves with dollars meant to improve the health of Americans. One massive fraud scheme that was charged as a part of today's takedown involved multiple durable medical equipment companies that billed Medicare over $10 billion for equipment that patients did not need or that they never received. The good news for the American people is that the alleged criminals in this scheme never got their hands on most of that Medicare and Medicaid money that they tried to steal. Instead, the government coordinated to use our collective tools and authorities to protect taxpayer dollars.
Dubbed the 2025 National Healthcare Fraud Takedown, the government seized over $245 million in cash, luxury vehicles, cryptocurrency, and other assets. In addition, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced that it saved over $4 billion in false and fraudulent claims. CMS also suspended or revoked billing more than 200 providers. Attorney General Pam Bondi hailed the takedown. Bondi said, quote, make no mistake, this administration will not tolerate criminals who line their pockets with taxpayer dollars while endangering the health and safety of our communities. After a long night and a weekend of debate, this morning senators began to vote on amendments to the big budget bill. Some Republican holdouts remain. One of them says he won't seek re-election after pushback from President Trump. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest.
Senators overnight debated the GOP's big budget bill.
According to the Council of Economic Advisors, these reforms will protect or create more than 7 million jobs, add 3.1% to economic growth, reduce taxes for the typical American by nearly 15%, and increase take-home pay for a normal family by an incredible $13,000.
Democrats used most of the floor time to make their case for why they're united in opposition.
There is one point that stands out, and that is that the fakery on the floor is belied by the language of the bill.
Hey, North Carolina, you suddenly have over $500 million for food assistance that you're going to have to pay for, or people are going to go hungry. Hey, Texas, you're going to have over $1 billion, and that is exactly what this bill does.
North Carolina's Republican Senator Tom Tillis now says he won't seek re-election after he opposed the bill.
Now, Republicans are about to make a mistake on health care and betraying a promise.
Getting blowback from Trump, who said he's looking for someone who will properly represent the great people of North Carolina. Tillis is one of a few holdouts, though most Republicans support the bill.
We're going to make sure that hardworking people can keep more of their money. We're going to make sure that we have secure borders, not just now, but for generations to come.
The multi-trillion-dollar spending package would lower federal taxes and increase spending for the military and border security. But it makes deep cuts to government-backed programs like Medicaid and food stamps. That's where some Republicans are divided. Others are concerned about state and local taxes.
and they go too far in changing what the House did, it runs the risk of it failing here. That's the reality.
Senators are starting a vote-a-rama this morning, where amendments will come to the floor. It's unclear if Republicans have the votes for final passage. A vote could happen as early as Monday, then it's off to the House, where leaders have planned to vote for Wednesday. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And just continuing a bit with the Senate version of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, the Congressional Budget Office says the Senate draft would add trillions to the national debt. According to the CBO, the bill is projected to increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion between 2025 and 2034, almost $1 trillion more than the previous version passed by the House. The agency also estimates that nearly 12 million Americans could lose their health insurance by 2034 if the bill becomes law, up from 11 million projected under the House version. White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson pushed back on the findings. She pointed to a report from the Council of Economic Advisors last week. The report says the bill would reduce the federal deficit by over $2 trillion over the next decade, citing tax cut-driven economic growth. All right, joining us now from Capitol Hill is Nathan Worcester, national political reporter for the Epoch Times. Nathan, hello there. Things looks like moving fast in the Senate. Can you talk to us about what's the latest?
Absolutely. You know, the scene in the Senate is one of tense negotiations. You have people coming in and out of a lunch on the GOP side, trying to advance their respective amendments as part of this vote-a-rama process. When it's going to end is anybody's guess. Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, speculated it could be sometime around 1 a.m. John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana, speculates more like midnight. I really think, though, these amendments, these individual little nuggets that particular senators are going for, will be the make or break when it comes to this bill.
And speaking of which, one of the bigger points here is Medicaid, right? I mean, do we have a clearer picture on what the final changes to Medicaid will look like?
Well, so that's a very interesting one because this FMAP, that's federal medical assistance under Obamacare, expanding the amount that the federal government pays in terms of Medicaid, this has been something addressed by a Rick Scott amendment co-sponsored with, among others, Ron Johnson, who was a vote he actually flipped on the motion to proceed a few days ago. And one might wonder if certain talk of Medicaid reform could have been part of what flipped him. But Rick Scott has said that he has the votes for this, which could phase out in just a few years, that expanded Obamacare coverage of state Medicaid costs. On the other hand, you have to watch out for some moderates, perhaps even a Josh Hawley and others who might oppose that and then sink something that, again, on the House side, the fiscal conservatives, people with the Freedom Caucus, they might like to see something like Scott's amendment, but then you also have moderates, people like Nicole Maliotakis and even members of, say, the SALT Caucus who would be opposed to it.
So Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski both have expressed some concern over Medicaid. I mean, passage of the bill could require the both of them for their votes. What is your read on where they stand right now and what they're looking for?
Well, Collins has not really said much clearly when reporters have pressed her on this issue. Interesting note, though, Murkowski has also been in the process of producing an amendment. Hers would address some of those Biden-era energy credits. They would shift some of the details of the phase-out basically to extend them a bit or make them a bit more generous. So, again, one wonders in the back rooms, quite literally, of the Senate, if there might be some horse trading happening here around, on the one hand, FMAP, and on the other hand, just how long those Biden-era energy credits from the Inflation Reduction Act are going to stick around. That, of course, would also have implications in the House. Notably, it was a big sticking point for Chip Roy and for others who were initially opposed to the House version and ended up changing their votes when they got what they considered to be a fairer and faster phase out of some of those credits.
Okay, so Trump has said that he wants the bill on his desk by July 4th. Can that deadline be met, do you think?
You know, a few days ago, John Kennedy, again, the senator from Louisiana, he was speaking to reporters. He said that in the Senate, we like to set these deadlines, and then we also get that whooshing sound as they pass by. But of course, now we're past all of the initial stages prior to vote-a-rama. We're past the debate time. We're past even the Republicans facing the prospect of having to read the bill aloud. They already did that. And so I really do think we're at the point where there is a great deal of sound and fury. there are these last-minute negotiations over specific amendments focused on things like those energy credits, Medicaid, even AI. There's a very interesting compromise on the AI moratorium, an issue that has been championed by Steve Bannon, who's concerned about too much big tech influence on that and many other issues. All of that is playing out, but we are on pace, I think, to get it through the Senate, likely late tonight, very early tomorrow. That would give time in the House for them to conference it out. And I think when you look to the House, the political pressure that members there feel because they're up for re-election every 2 years, because Trump is a make or break factor in the Republican Party, that is going to have an impact. I could imagine then we will likely see some fast movement, faster than some people with their continued doubts about the bill might like to see, because at the end of the day, this is a political body responsive to the American people.
Okay, so what is your read on whether the Republicans can muster the votes to pass this bill? Because there was a procedural vote, right, on Saturday. 2 Republicans joined all Democrats opposing the bill. Where do things stand right now?
Well, so the 2 Republicans, again, you had Tillis, who has now said that he's retiring, opening up a potentially rather competitive primary, and a seat that could be vulnerable to Democrats. Rand Paul, the other no vote, was no great shock, although interestingly enough, he did end up golfing with Lindsey Graham, President Trump, John Ratcliffe of the CIA, and Senator Eric Schmidt earlier in the day. But then that Ron Johnson of Wisconsin vote that flipped from an expected no to a yes. Again, now he is the co-sponsor of this FMAP Medicaid amendment. That was one that could have gone the other way. There was definitely speculation just a few days ago that on that initial motion to proceed, Vance might have to come in as the tiebreaker. And indeed, it's possible on some of these amendments, he could come in as a tiebreaker. I expect that based on that vote, based on the chatter, even from John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, who's more or less said this is pretty much a done deal, I would expect that the Senate is going to pass it. But it might require a tiebreaker, might require some significant compromises on the amendments. And then, of course, we do have the House stage to go through.
Okay, let me just get one more comment from you. The Senate version of the bill is pretty massive, over 940 pages, and touches on many aspects of domestic policy. I want our viewers to take away from this conversation something that they can use. So talk to us about what should people know and understand about this bill?
Well, I'd say there's a great deal to reflect on. As I mentioned, there could be the impacts on Medicaid, depending upon the time scale at which that happens, depending upon various other details that are still being hammered out, especially, as I mentioned, with respect to FMAP and how much the federal government has to pay for Medicaid. Republicans will say that states will have a bit of a runway, several years, and also there is the $25 billion bridge fund for rural hospitals. That's been a big issue for Josh Hawley when it comes to some of the Medicaid impacts and Medicare impacts. On the other hand, you do have Democrats saying that this could have a significant impact at the end of the day, based on their analyses, for example, from one of their committees just today on the number of Americans who would be insured. Other impacts, of course, would be the extension of the 2017 tax cuts, potential additional cuts to taxes on tips, effectively a cut to tax on Social Security, also taxes on overtime. That stands out, I think, as among the really strong, important things that people should be aware of. Of course, it also includes border funding. It also includes, as I mentioned, a phase out of those energy credits. And as the amendment process continues, there could be a compromise on AI and on perhaps other issues.
Okay, Nathan, thank you so much today.
Absolutely, thank you.
Coming up, a former high-ranking New York State government employee and her husband pleaded not guilty today at a Brooklyn federal criminal court in Raymond. We have that story and more when we come back.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. But the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
A former high-ranking New York State government employee, Linda Sun, and her husband pleaded not guilty today at a Brooklyn federal criminal court arraignment. The two are charged with being involved in a fraudulent scheme to steer government contracts to family businesses. She and her husband allegedly received millions of dollars, including some kickbacks. For more on this story, we're joined by NTD's Arlene Richards, who is in the courtroom today. Arlene, this isn't the first time Sun and her husband have faced charges now, is it?
That's right, Don. This proceeding today involved a second superseding indictment, but the original indictment came last September when they were charged with money laundering and also acting as agents for the Chinese Communist Party, as well as alien smuggling. Now, they already pleaded not guilty to those charges, and they've also pleaded not guilty today.
And Arlene, tell us more about what they've been charged with today.
So the superseding indictment today involves a time when Ms. Sun was working for former Governor Andrew Cuomo. And at that time, she was one of his aides, and she was required to join a team. And that team was responsible for getting vendors for the face masks, because as you know, at that time, it was during the COVID pandemic. And so they were ordering lots and lots of face masks. And the allegation is that she falsified documents so that she could replace one of the approved vendors with vendors who are running businesses in her family-owned businesses. And also her husband is accused of owning one of those vendor businesses and also receiving funding through his business or being involved in a contract. So let me just look at my notes and see if there's anything else regarding that, because I think the judge mentioned a few other things. They're saying that she took this opportunity to enrich herself as well as her husband, and that she also was involved in other types of fraud, document fraud and visa fraud.
And as well, Arlene, you actually got an up-close view of Ms. Hu and her husband today. How do they appear to be handling these extra charges?
Well, I have to say that Ms. Sun appeared to be tired and maybe a little weary. It looked like she hadn't slept well. She was quite reserved, not really talking much with her attorneys. And when she did talk, it was more of a head nod. Her husband, on the other hand, seemed to be more engaged with his attorneys. He was more chatty. He even at times tried to say something to his wife, but it seemed that she barely would answer him. So even when she was speaking to the judge to respond to the questions, you could hear a little nervousness in her voice, whereas her husband seemed more calm. Now, coming up in August 25th, will be another scheduling hearing. And at that time, I think that both sides will discuss the trial and what they need to go forward with the trial. And the trial itself is scheduled to begin November 3rd, but we don't know what's going to happen in that scheduling meeting. It could be adjourned again. But as of right now, this trial is scheduled for November 3rd. Don, back to you.
Okay, Arlene, thank you. President Trump's tariff deadline is fast approaching, and this time he says there will be no extensions. Here's more on that story.
The tariff clock is ticking. President Trump says letters will go out soon, targeting countries that haven't struck a new trade deal with the United States before July 9th. That deadline marks the end of a 90-day grace period Trump announced back in April. Trump said he is not considering any extensions. And for countries without a deal, Trump says the penalties could be steep, up to 50% tariffs. Trump said on Fox News that tariff levels will depend on how countries treat the U.S. and how big their trade deficits are.
We'll look at how a country treats us. Are they good? Are they not so good? Some countries, we don't care. We'll just send a high number out. But we're going to be sending letters out starting pretty soon.
One of the biggest flashpoints was with Canada. But this weekend, Ottawa abruptly dropped its digital services tax. That tax would have slapped a 3% levy on revenues from U.S. tech companies like Amazon and Google, retroactive to 2022. It would have left American firms with a $2 billion bill, which is why Trump announced last week he would be ending trade negotiations with Canada unless they dropped it. But by Sunday, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne reversed course. Champagne said pulling the tax will clear the path to a new deal that will create jobs and build prosperity for all Canadians. Just 2 weeks ago, Trump and Carney agreed at the G7 to finalize a bilateral deal within 30 days. Now, with that July 21st goal back in sight, the two sides may be inching toward compromise. Meanwhile, Trump told Fox News Sunday he had found a buyer for TikTok, a group of what he called very wealthy people.
No big deal. We have a buyer for TikTok, by the way. I think I'll need probably China approval. I think President Xi will probably do it.
Who's buying?
I'll tell you in about 2 weeks.
A big technology company there.
Very, very wealthy people. It's a group of very wealthy people.
Earlier this month, Trump once again extended the deadline for the sale of TikTok. He gave the company until mid-September to split from its parent company, ByteDance. Back in March, then FBI Director Christopher Wray told Congress that TikTok poses a major national security threat. He warned ByteDance's algorithm, paired with U.S. user data, could be used for influence campaigns that are almost impossible to detect. TikTok briefly went dark in the United States in January when the original deadline passed. But just days before taking office, Trump said he'd extend the clock. That executive order, signed on Inauguration Day, put the app back online.
South Korea will seek an extension to President Trump's 90-day tariff pause. A senior South Korean trade official said negotiations are likely to continue past the deadline. South Korea's new administration held its first senior-level trade talks with the U.S. last week. The official said the U.S. raised concerns related to South Korea's non-tariff barriers. Meanwhile, other issues, including foreign exchange rates and defense, are being discussed separately. More than 28,000 American military personnel are stationed in South Korea to deter North Korean aggression. President Trump has taken issue with the cost-sharing arrangement between the two allies and others, such as NATO. Thailand's finance minister is expected to travel to the United States later today for trade talks. Discussions will be held over the next 2 days. The Thai official told local news that he hoped U.S. tariffs levied on Thailand would not be higher than those imposed on other countries. Thailand faces 36% tariffs if it fails to negotiate a reduction before a pause expires on July 9th. A tariff of 10% has been set for most nations while the moratorium is in place. Earlier this month, Thailand's commerce minister said talks between the two countries could lead to good terms on tariffs, possibly as low as 10%. Thailand has said it hopes the negotiations will be extended past the July 9th deadline. A tragic developing story out of North Idaho. 2 firefighters were shot and killed after being ambushed while responding to a brush fire yesterday. Another firefighter was injured during the hours-long incident before the suspect was found dead. NTD's Daniel Monahan brings us the latest on this disturbing story.
Kootenai County Sheriff Robert Norris says reports came in at about 1:20 p.m. on Sunday of an active fire on the east side of Canfield Mountain, a nature zone popular with hikers. Fire personnel responded to the scene.
And at approximately 2 p.m. this afternoon, it was reported that firefighters were receiving shots fired at them.
Authorities were on edge as the sniper fire rained down on their team members.
We are actively taking sniper fire as we speak. This is an active situation.
Sheriff Norris said they believe the suspect started the fire, calling the incident a total ambush, adding that the firefighters did not have a chance.
We did lose a Coeur d'Alene firefighter, and we did lose a firefighter from the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue.
A third wounded firefighter was fighting for his life after surgery and was in stable condition. Officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect, but it was not clear if the gunman was hit and killed or if he killed himself. In their search for the suspect, police say they tracked a cell phone signal that had remained near the location at the same spot for hours.
We honed in on that cell phone, and we saw that there was a male, appeared to be deceased, with a weapon nearby.
The fire was rapidly approaching the dead suspect.
We had to scoop up that body, and we had to transport that body to a different location.
Police say they believe the deceased suspect was the only shooter. The motive for the shooting was not known, and police were still working to identify the man. More than 300 law enforcement officers from the city, county, state, and federal levels responded to the scene of the shooting, including 2 helicopters with snipers aboard. Police say the shooter used a high-powered sporting rifle to fire rapidly at first responders, with law enforcement initially unsure of the number of perpetrators involved. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino wrote on X on Sunday that FBI technical teams and tactical assets were on the scene providing support. Idaho Governor Brad Little called the incident a heinous direct assault on Idaho's brave firefighters. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem asked people to pray for Idaho's first responders and vowed that justice would be served. Eyewitness video showed firefighters gathering on Sunday for a memorial procession to show their respect to the 2 fallen firefighters killed in the line of duty. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, Hong Kong's last major opposition party disbands, leaving the Beijing-ruled city with no formal pro-democracy political presence. We have that and more when we come back.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Get new lower prices all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. They have all the latest looks at unbeatable prices. Like this big sofa with curved arms and 5 plush throw pillows. They dropped the price to just $5.99. That's an incredible value. And with their huge selection, you're sure to find the style that's just right for you. In stock with fast, free delivery. Look for price drop alert tags and save now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay?
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time. American, we sense that. But this little girl,
The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog says Iran could resume uranium enrichment in just a few months. That warning follows a bombing campaign which the Trump administration says wiped out key parts of Iran's nuclear program. Director Rafael Grossi of the International Atomic Energy Agency told CBS the strikes likely caused very serious damage, but he said some infrastructure is still standing and it may be only a matter of months before Iran starts enriching uranium again. President Trump defended the strikes on Fox News, criticizing media outlets for downplaying the damage. In an interview taped Friday and broadcast Sunday, he said he doesn't believe the Iranians got any enriched uranium out before the strikes.
It's very heavy, very, very heavy. It's a very hard thing to do. Plus, we didn't give them much notice because they didn't know we were coming until just, then. And I could see it happening. And they tried to build that into a story. And then it turned out, no, it was obliterated like nobody's ever seen before. And that meant the end to their nuclear ambitions, at least for a period of time. And
Trump also said on Fox the sources that leaked the preliminary report on the Iran strikes should be prosecuted. CNN and the New York Times cited a Defense Intelligence Agency report and suggested the strikes were less effective than the Trump administration reported. New satellite images show ongoing activity at Iran's Fordow nuclear enrichment plant, which was struck by U.S. B-2 bombers just over a week ago. The imagery was collected by Maxar Technologies yesterday. Maxar said the pictures show an excavator and several personnel positioned immediately next to the northern shaft on the ridge above the underground complex. The crane also appears to be operating at the entrance to the shaft. According to Maxar, several additional vehicles are also seen below the ridge and are parked along the path that was built to access the site. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane said last week that all three nuclear sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction, but the full damage would take time to assess. In a Truth Social post today, Trump said he was not speaking to Iran and was not offering the country anything. Trump was referencing Senator Chris Coons, who had mentioned press reports that the administration was moving towards an Obama-style nuclear deal. The president restated that the U.S., quote, totally obliterated Tehran's nuclear facilities. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there are now broad regional possibilities in the Middle East. That's following the recent ceasefire between Israel and Iran. But the threat from Hamas terrorists still exists.
Of course, we will also have to solve the Gaza issue to defeat Hamas. But I estimate that we will achieve that and the release of hostages. But beyond that, broad regional possibilities open up.
President Trump yesterday urged progress in ceasefire talks for Gaza. Israel and Hamas appeared to move closer to an agreement. That's 20 months after the October 7th attacks, which sparked the war in Gaza. A top advisor to Netanyahu is reportedly set to travel to Washington this week for talks about a ceasefire. In Israel, Netanyahu's security cabinet is expected to convene to discuss the next steps. Ukraine is on track to allow the use of anti-personnel mines. Such mines are controversial because they often endanger civilians after a war ends. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazar has more on the mines and the dangers they pose.
Ukraine is on track to withdraw from the Ottawa Convention. The agreement bans the production and use of anti-personnel mines. President Vladimir Zelensky signed a decree for withdrawal on Sunday. He explained the decision afterwards.
Russia was never part of this convention, and it is using anti-personnel mines with utmost cynicism.
Russia has used anti-personnel mines extensively in parts of Ukraine where its forces have been operating. Ukraine's parliament still has to approve the move to withdraw from the Ottawa Convention. As opposed to anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines can be triggered very easily, but they're still very destructive. A major problem is that after a conflict ends, those mines are usually not being picked back up. According to the Red Cross, civilians suffer the most because of anti-personnel mines. Stepping on a mine will often injure or kill one or more people, frequently children, with lifelong consequences for the victims and their families. Mine contamination makes it impossible to use vast areas of land, compromising food production and destroying livelihoods. Russian forces in eastern Ukraine are currently struggling to demine an area which is only 35 yards wide and 10 miles long. A soldier says some mines are homemade and thus unstable. Others have a magnetic field to detect people.
They can't be approached because they have a magnetic field. Because of this, it is difficult for our fighters to approach them and do their work.
Among other things, troops are using drones and robots to scan areas for mines. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss the impacts of the Big Beautiful Bill is Daniel Lacalle, Chief Economist at Tresses Hedge Fund and author of the book Freedom or Equality. So, good afternoon, Daniel. Let's start off with one of Trump's bigger promises that's in the bill. It introduces new deductions for tips, overtime, car loans, some Social Security income. What are the likely effects of these on the middle class?
Well, these are exceedingly important because we have to remember that there was a project to increase taxes on all those segments. And these are actually those parts of society that have the largest levels of vulnerability. Therefore, reducing those taxes is absolutely critical to improve the conditions for the middle class and for the people in the services sector that are actually in an environment that logically, because of the way that the sector works, that is more cyclical. So it's a better way of having more security about their income and about their finances. So I think it's a very, very important factor, likely to drive higher consumption and improvement in the credit card debt, reducing those levels of credit card debt that so many citizens have had to maximize in the past months.
So if you're saying that it's going to be a boost for those sectors that you mentioned, do you also expect this bill then, naturally with its mix of tax cuts and spending increases, to boost GDP?
Oh, absolutely. If we, as Austrian economists or libertarians, don't understand that the combination of deregulation and tax cuts are likely to drive a much stronger but also more sustainable GDP, is definitely something that we should be repeating over and over again. It is very important for everyone to understand that we have seen in Argentina, in Ireland, in Luxembourg, in Holland, in so many countries, that the combination of deregulation and tax cuts generate better revenues, more sustainable GDP growth, and more productive growth. And that is very important in order to accelerate job creation, improve investment, and drive tax revenues to a higher level. Let's remember that the tax cuts of 2016 actually increased revenues to record levels. So those are elements that are very important. But it's also very important to think of the negative impact if the Big Beautiful Bill is not passed, which would entail the largest tax hike on the middle class in history.
Okay, speaking of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, the bill would actually make it permanent, meaning it could maybe leave more capital in the hands of American small businesses, and that's really important, right? So talk to us about the impacts of the 2017 Trump tax cuts.
Okay, the impact was very evident. Number one, we saw record revenues, record tax receipts, and that is something that is very important considering some of the criticisms that we have read in the past 2 weeks. But second, and you've just outlined that, is the improvement for small and medium enterprises. We have seen how small and medium enterprises have been obliterated by higher inflation, higher taxes, and a weakening of the productive economy. Small and medium enterprises will find a boost both in terms of cash generation and their ability to restore their finances and improve their decisions of investment. So I think it's important, no, it is critical for the SMEs, which are the fabric of the productive economy in the United States, to pass this bill, as well as for consumption. So if we look at GDP, what we're likely to see is an improvement in investment, a reduction in imports, an improvement in exports, and a significant boost in terms of consumption.
Okay, so talking about businesses, exports, imports, the bill also offers tax incentives for U.S. manufacturing, and that includes full expensing for capital investment. How effective, in your opinion, are these tools going to be in sort of revitalizing domestic production, if you will?
Well, let's start from the deregulation part. The deregulation part is likely to boost and strengthen the investment in the energy sector quite significantly. Let's remember that there was an enormous level of bureaucratic burden imposed on the energy sector in the past 4 years. I think that it's also very significant to understand that the incentives to attract manufacturing to the United States are likely to generate a very large improvement in investment. We have already seen that investment in the first quarter soared. And I think that it is likely to continue to strengthen into particularly the 27 to 28 period. That is likely, obviously, to be when those positives manifest, because investment tends to appear between 12 to 16 months after the bill has been passed.
Okay, so all these things we've talked about looks to be a positive for the economy, but I'm sure you've also heard of the CBO projections. If I could get your comments on that, where it says the bill could increase the deficit by over $3 trillion. Any comments you have on that?
Well, the first thing that we need to understand is that the CBO projections are exceedingly conservative. The CBO projections don't consider any improvement in the economy from the deregulation, any improvement in investment, any improvement in growth or jobs from lower tax cuts, and certainly any improvement in revenues, especially, which I find surprising, considering that the 2017 tax cuts actually generated record receipts. No? But I also find it very, let's say, questionable to consider the tax cuts same as a spending increase. That is not the case in any shape or form. And the other thing about the CBO projections that is not considering any positive is from the trade deals. The CBO projections assume no improvement in exports and no improvement in imports. Therefore, if we assume a Laffer curve estimate and a logical conservative estimate of the improvements from the trade deals, the tax receipts coming both from higher revenues and also higher tariffs, and also the improvement in investment and growth, it is very likely that we see a substantial improvement from the trend in GDP growth, and therefore the deficit is likely to be reduced in 25, 26, and 27 relative to the base, and even more importantly, relative to what would have been the alternative, which was the disastrous economic program presented by Kamala Harris.
Okay, just to wrap up here, let me ask you one more thing on the market. It seems like S&P 500, NASDAQ reaching all new highs now, record highs. Any thoughts you have on what's contributing to this record market rise?
Yeah, number one, very good earnings. The earnings season has been very positive, and more importantly, it was not just the earnings published, but the guidance. Remember that in 2020, most of the S&P 500 companies did not give any guidance because of uncertainty. In this year, we have seen not just confirmation of year and next year's expectations of earnings growth, but actually some of them strengthening. That has been very, very positive. Also, the market has gone from a tariff tantrum to understanding that tariffs are a tool to negotiate trade deals. And therefore, the market now reacts positively on the news that there's going to be some kind of negotiation, and also positive on the confirmation of those trade deals. So I think it's basically going from a very negative perception of the tariff announcement in Liberation Day to the realization that it's a negotiation tool added to a very robust earnings season with very good guidance.
Okay, Daniel, again, thank you very much for your time today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Don.
Coming up, will the big beautiful bill be a boost to the U.S.? Is the elimination of tax on tips and overtime going to be positive for the economy? We have that and more when we come back.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is going to be Addie's room.
I am blind.
I think you're really going to like it.
I hope so. Yeah.
I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Ways down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know it's there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
A panel of experts at the World Health Organization says it can't reach a conclusion about the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Chinese Communist regime is still withholding information. The WHO Director General said all hypotheses must remain on the table. He also said the WHO continues to appeal to China and any other country that has information about the origins of COVID-19 to share information openly. The first known cases of COVID-19 came from Wuhan in central China, but patient 0 has never been identified. A report published Friday suggests an animal origin, but does not rule out other possibilities. The authors still seek more specific information from China. In January this year, the CIA reported the pandemic more likely came from a lab, joining the FBI and the U.S. Energy Department in their conclusions. In April, the Trump administration endorsed the lab leak theory. The White House changed a COVID-19 website to say the lab is a most likely origin of COVID-19. Hong Kong's League of Social Democrats said it would disband amid immense political pressure. This leaves the Beijing-ruled city with no formal pro-democracy political presence.
I want to emphasize that our decision to dissolve ourselves is we are facing a lot of political pressure. And we need to consider a lot of reasons, including especially for our Congress, our friends, the consequence for them. So we choose to disbandment.
The group underwent a 5-year-long national security crackdown after Beijing imposed a so-called national security law on Hong Kong in 2020. The law has faced international criticism. It's seen as a way to silence political opposition and restrict civil freedoms. The threat of prosecution and even life imprisonment has largely shut down organized protests since the law was passed. A second set of laws known as Article 23 were passed in 2024. They further tightened Beijing's control over the city. Many normal political activities are considered seditious and treacherous under the laws. Up next, new laws are about to kick in across California, tackling everything from retail theft to hidden rental fees. We'll break down what's changing and how it could affect California residents. Stay with us.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free